Hello learner, my name is Lina Wesonga. Welcome to topic 3, acquisition of training resources used in managing curriculum and instruction. In topic 2, we looked at the documents used in managing curriculum and instruction. By the end of this topic, you are expected to 1. Define the concepts used in managing curriculum and instruction. 2. Describe the types of training resources used in managing curriculum and instruction. 3. Discuss the factors considered in acquisition of training resources for managing curriculum and instruction. 4. Describe the process of sourcing for training resources used in managing curriculum and instruction. 5. State the types of sourcing in acquisition of training resources used for managing curriculum and instruction. And lastly, design a sourcing plan used in acquisition of training resources for managing curriculum and instruction. You'll also be required to carry out an activity at the end of the topic. We will now define some of the terms used, and they include resources, training resources, and sourcing. What are resources? Good attempt. What are training resources? Well done. What is sourcing? Correct. Let us now look at the correct definition of the terms. Resources. These are materials available in an environment which are technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally sustainable, and help us to satisfy our needs and wants. Training resources. They refer to different formats in which training can be delivered and the variety of materials needed to make the training possible. Sourcing. This is a process of finding, evaluating, and engaging suppliers based on the set criteria to achieve cost savings and the best value for money. We will now look at types of training resources. Can you identify some of the training resources that you know? Very good. The types of training resources include, we have software, textbooks, training manuals, relevant reading materials, training videos, video recorders, self-assessment forms, smart charts, procedure documents, classrooms, and labs. Having looked at the training resources, what do you think are some of the factors considered when sourcing for these training resources? Very good. So the factors considered in sourcing for the training resources include the level of technology to be used, suitability of the training resources, training activities involved, creativity and innovation, required knowledge and skills, the learning styles of the learners, We have the cost of the training resources, the training needs of the learner, and lastly, accessibility of the training resources. Let us now look at the process of sourcing the training resources. Do you know the process that is followed when we are sourcing for these training resources? Well done. So the process of sourcing for the training resources include: 1. You need to assess the needs of the company, because you need to know the needs of each department. 2. You need to carry out research of the market so that you are able to know the potential suppliers or the service providers from whom you are going to choose from. Then you will develop a sourcing strategy. And when developing a sourcing strategy, you will need to decide where you are going to buy the goods or services from so that you are able to minimize the costs. After which, you will issue a request for quotation or request for proposal. This is where you will invite the vendors to compete in the bidding process, where evaluation will be done based on the proposals submitted. 5. You will now select a supplier. Here, documents are evaluated to find out who matches the requirement. 6. Negotiation of the terms with the selected supplier. And if the suppliers agree, they'll now be able to sign a contract. And then lastly, we'll analyze the result. This is where you'll check the performance of the supplier based on the materials or services rendered. We'll now look at the types of sourcing methods used. What are some of the types of sourcing methods that you know? Correct. So there are several types of sourcing used for acquisition of training resources, and they include: 1. We have outsourcing. Now, outsourcing refers to acquiring training resources outside the institution. 2. We have insourcing. This is where the institution has the training resources at hand and one department can provide to the other. For example, Agriculture Department provides milk for IM Department to carry out a practical. 3. We have near sourcing. In near sourcing, the institution conducts a reconnaissance of the area to find suitable suppliers of the needed materials. Then they'll engage the suppliers in contract negotiations. 4. We have low-cost country sourcing. So this method is used to acquire materials or service from within the country and at the lowest cost possible, and therefore promotes local entrepreneurs. 5. We have global sourcing. So for global sourcing, the institution can advertise goods and services in international newspapers, and they'll invite potential suppliers from all over the world. Such works or services will involve large sums of money and may be technical in nature. 6. We have subcontracting arrangements, and for this arrangement, the work or service is extensive and can be broken into subsections. So the main contractor may choose to transfer some work or service to the others, so that the subcontracting arrangement may be necessitated by the need to meet deadlines or specifications. And lastly, we have responsible sourcing. So this is a method of acquiring training resources that pays attention to the environmental impacts of its activities. So to be able to source for these training resources, you need to design a sourcing plan. What are some of the considerations to be followed when designing this sourcing plan? Very good. So when designing a sourcing plan, you need to consider the following. 1. Assess your current situation. So by assessing the current situation, you will be able to know what is needed by each department. 2. Establish the learning objectives. 3. You will select your learning methods and resources. 4. Draw your learning activities and schedule. And then lastly, you will implement and monitor the learning outcomes. Let us now look at a sample sourcing plan. So a sourcing plan will include the following. It will have a column for the serial number. We'll have description of the item to be bought, where you give a description of what you are going to be bought, like a computer. 3. It will have a date of request, and this is when the request for the item to be bought was made. We have a column for requested by, and here we'll indicate the name of the person making the request for the item to be bought. We have department, where you'll include the department that is making a request for the item to be bought. It will include the procurement method to be used, where you'll indicate the kind of method that you're going to use when procuring that particular item. We have the action date, and the action date, this is the date when the item was ordered for. We have the date of the delivery, and here we'll include the exact date when the item was delivered. And then lastly, we have status. So in the status, if the item was delivered, we will include delivered, and if the item has not been delivered, you will include pending. So learner, what have you learned today? Very good. In this topic, we have covered the following. We have defined the terms used in acquisition of training resources. We've looked at the different types of training resources used. 3. We've looked at the factors considered in acquiring the training resources. 4. The process of sourcing for the training resources, the types of sourcing, and lastly, designing a sourcing plan. Having looked at that, you are required to carry out the following activities. Visit a technical and vocational training institution in your area. Identify the various training resources used for effective curriculum management. Develop a sourcing plan for the training resources identified and post in your e-portfolio. The next topic will be on curriculum implementation process. Thank you.